When most of us think of trauma, we think of a stressful emotional event. But what we're talking about today is the biology of trauma. This is Wellness by Design. I'm your host, Jane Hogan, the wellness engineer. And my guest today is a person that has inspired me. She's a good friend. She actually wrote the foreword for my new book, Pain Free on Purpose. And that is Dr. Aimie Apigian. Now, Aimie is a double board certified in prevention medicine and addiction medicine. She has master's degree in biochemistry and public health, and she's also had training in psychosomatic medicine, functional medicine, and mental health nutrition. Now, we talk about a lot of great things in this episode, but at the end, we really hone in on what are some specific things you can do that are going to provide an integrative, three-pronged approach to help your body heal. And we really know that it's the body that does the healing, but we need to help it. And so make sure you stay tuned to the end. She's also written a book called The Biology of Trauma, and which is just released this week. And she has some great resources available when you buy the book this week. All right, I'll see you inside the episode. I think you're really going to enjoy this and find it very informative. All right, see you inside. Welcome to Wellness by Design, Dr. Aimie Apigian.
Thank you, Jane. It's always good to see you. It's always good to talk with you. It's good to be here.
Well, we've been friends for quite a while, and this is not the first time you've been on the podcast. I'm really happy to welcome you back, but it's really exciting because your brand new book just came out yesterday. So, like, how exciting is that? The Biology of Trauma. So, let's talk about your book and why you wrote it, who's it for, all of that.
Yeah, it's still hard to believe that I actually wrote a book and that it came out yesterday. This has been an idea that I've had for a while, but I mean, Jane, you've written your book and it is something completely different than to think you know what you're going to put in your book and to have the idea of writing a book, but then to actually have to sit down and say, how would I present this to someone if they were sitting across from me? How
Yeah.
would I lead them through this experience and this journey so that it makes sense and it accomplishes for them what I want it to accomplish for the individual reader. So it's still a pinch me moment that I wrote a book and that it's out in the world now.
So proud of you. So proud of you. And you're right, because I think for you, for me, for most people, our path was very circuitous. Like it
Very much
wasn't a
so.
straight line. But that's not how we want to give it to people. We want to give them the clearer path, right? And so that's what you've done in your book. And I love the cover of your book because it's a cell. It's a cell, which really helps us understand that trauma isn't something that just happens and we have feelings about it. It affects us right at the cell. But first of all, let's just talk about how does someone know if they've got trauma? Because we think of trauma as being the big things, right? But I know and you know it's not just that. So how do we know if we've experienced trauma and if it's affecting us?
What a great question. And I actually wrote my book for the person who doesn't know if they've had trauma.
Okay.
Those who do know, well,
Yeah.
and you often can see the effects of it. You know the effects of it. You live with the effects of it. You don't need to be told about it. Now, you still want to understand how it affects your body at the cellular level because it affects what you're going to do about it. But there are so many people who have stored trauma, buried pain, hidden overwhelm, and they don't know.
Mm.
And so for me, this was really that book to show them what happens and what is the difference between stress and trauma to their body.
Yeah.
There are so many patients that I have worked with over the years, and I would watch them downplay their past. And they would say things like, oh, that was just, family dynamics. That wasn't
Yeah.
trauma. And yet I'm looking at their body and saying, whether you think that it was trauma or not, your body had an experience and your body is still carrying that experience, and it has turned into symptoms, conditions, and diagnoses.
Yeah.
So this idea that we can experience trauma and not even know that we've had trauma, and yet it lives on in our bodies.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was my experience. I mean, I was saying to myself, I'm 50 years old. I should be over this. Like it was such a minor thing. And I said the same thing. It's just family dynamics. It's, that thing. But yet, as a result of that, I had a lifetime of being a people pleaser, being a perfectionist, and really just not ever feeling good enough. And that is stressful. Our body, if we don't feel good enough or feel safe, that's stressful. So let's talk about that. Like maybe, how do you see it show up? How would people know whether what they experienced is likely having a physical effect besides the actual physical effect?
Yeah, one of the things that was really helpful for me is as I came into studying trauma, and I came into studying trauma as a result of my experience being a foster parent and then adoptive parent. And what really helped me was my training in medical school, which had taught me to look for patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Pattern recognition is how we diagnose diseases. And we would look for the pattern of, well, where are you having your pain? And let me check your white cell count. And do you have a fever? And when did it start? And how did it start? And the story gave us patterns. And if it was this pattern, well, then it was this diagnosis. And if it was that diagnosis, it was that treatment. But if it was this pattern, well, then it's a different diagnosis. And so I'm looking at patterns, and I'm starting to see that there are patterns that show up as a result of trauma being stored in the body. And by in the body, I really mean the nervous system. And by the nervous system, I really mean the autonomic nervous system.
Yeah.
The nervous system branch that controls all of our automatic functions. And when it is in survival mode, and there are two survival modes, but when it is in one of those survival modes versus in a connecting, healthy, feeling safe mode, it will create patterns. And so when I looked at the patterns, there are 5D patterns that I talk about in my book. And these come from how our body survives, what our nervous system uses as survival mechanisms to survive what feels like the unsurvivable. And that is really the distinguishing factor between what was a stress for us and what was actually a trauma. At that time, when we were going through that, did we know that we were going to be okay? Or was there this sense of, I don't know if I'm going to be okay. I don't think I am going to be okay. And when that is the scenario, our nervous system says, I know how to help you survive the unsurvivable. I know how to do that. Mm. And this goes back to my work as a physician. And I did 4 years of general surgery before changing and becoming an addiction medicine physician. And I worked with a lot of patients who were on that verge of life or death. Some of them were coming in from a physical trauma, like a car accident or some other type of accident where they were going to die if intervention was not done. And to be able to watch their body, Jane, watch the human body fight for life.
Right. Go into shock or do what
Go into shock. Yes. Or shut down, faint. It's incredible to see what we can do to the human body and what it will do to fight to stay alive. Hmm. And so to apply that lens that I had to the emotional pain that I saw people experiencing. And the reality is that we can go through emotional pain that feels so big, we don't know if we're going to survive that. Mm-hmm. In fact, many people feel that if they were to allow themselves to feel that pain, they would fall apart. They might even die. And our nervous system knows how to get us through those times. We don't understand it. It's beyond our logic. It happens on a much deeper level than our conscious control. And then that's why it's become confusing, is because we don't understand what's happening in my body. I just know that I start to go to someplace else. I go to some other place in my mind. I numb. I distract myself. I avoid. And I can even avoid with very healthy and socially acceptable things. I can avoid with alcohol and a glass of wine at a social activity because I'm trying to avoid that anxiety that I have of people may not like me, or I'm trying to relax because I'm so uptight that if they saw the real me, they wouldn't like me. I can escape that. I can distract myself with busyness. I can even accomplish a lot of things, and that be my form of avoiding the void that I feel when I am still, when I just have myself and it's uncomfortable to be with myself. So these are not things that we generally think about. Oh, well, that's obviously a trauma pattern, but they are. And you talk about this in your work. You talk about like, these are the things that will drive the pain, that will drive the nervous system to stay in this loop of pain. And it is going back to our past. It is going back to previous experiences where we felt this kind of fear of, I don't actually know if I'm going to survive this. And it being an emotional pain that we don't know if we will survive. And somehow we stuff it, we bury it, we shove it down in order to survive, in order to be able to keep going. But that doesn't go anywhere. Time doesn't heal it. And eventually our body will not be able to keep holding it down, and it will come to the surface. And whether it comes to the surface in the form of emotional pain, most often, as you've even experienced, it shows up in physical health conditions. That's how our buried emotional pain presents, as physical health symptoms.
And it may not even have been like, I'm just trying to think as a young child, it may not seem like a big thing, but in your child world, it feels unsurvivable, or just you want to hide and never go through this again. I mean, you're probably not thinking, am I going to survive this? But it's awful, when you're a child and things like that happen. So it gets buried for a long time. So let's talk about, Aimie, what goes on physically in the body over time, because it seems like I hear a lot of people, and you probably see this as well. There may have been some of this lowercase t trauma or uppercase T trauma, and they kind of cope with it. And then there's something else that comes along, and it's like the straw that broke the camel's back, and it's just like too much. It's too much at that point. So let's talk about how, like, what's going on in the body all that time.
Yes. What an important insight that people can have of, when is it too much? And your body will no longer be able to cope as it has before. In fact, I start my book in chapter 1 with a story about Elena. And Elena was in a car accident. 1 year later, she's diagnosed with autoimmunity, lupus. She thought it came out of the blue. She was very frustrated. Why now? I have so much else going on in my life. She was divorced, a single mom, 2 teenage daughters. Her oldest daughter had begun to have some mental health problems, and she was very concerned about her. And so this came when everything else was also happening. And she didn't realize that that's why it came at that time. is because there was so much else happening, and it had exceeded what I call in my book the capacity equation.
Yeah.
So in our body, we have an unconscious equation that is running constantly in the background. For those familiar with Dr. Steve Porges' work with polyvagal theory, you will understand that I'm talking about neuroception. And the idea that neuroception is a background calculation that is estimating what is my current capacity versus the demands that are on me.
Mm-hmm.
Even if these are healthy, positive demands, they are still a demand. Like for you, writing your book, that was a demand on your body and on your brain.
Oh yeah.
It was,
Feeling it.
yeah, it was one that you chose, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't one that life imposed on you that we would call it a trauma, but it is still a demand on you.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing if someone wanted to run a marathon, right? Like you and your running or your family's activities with their marathons and trail running. This is a demand on their body. It's not a bad demand. Demands are not good or bad. They're just that, a demand. But what can happen is that the demand is matched against our capacity. And when our capacity starts to be lower because we haven't fed ourselves the right food, we haven't given ourselves the right nutrients, our gas tank, if you want to call it that, our gas tank is becoming more and more depleted, but the demands that we place on ourselves have not changed. In fact, if anything, they've only increased. I want you to do more. I want you to do more. I want you to do more people pleasing. I want you to do more accomplishments. And at some point, our demands are going to far exceed our capacity. When that gap is created, trauma lives in the gap.
Mm-hmm.
Trauma lives in the gap. And so for Elena, there was a gap now. The gap that was caused by the car accident. She had been coping okay until the car accident. And now the car accident with the wounds and the bruising and the brain whiplash and that inflammation and just that added pressure of, I've got to rest more and I don't have time to rest. She was the CEO of a business. She's got her daughter. She's got her life. So she felt even more of that. No, I can't rest, but I have to because I'm recovering from a car accident. It just became too much. And that is one reason why our bodies will cross that critical line of overwhelm and experience a trauma response, and physical health symptoms will start to show up from our past. Mm-hmm. It's just reached a point where it's just too much. But the other reason is just as much true, and that is too little for too long.
Right.
And this is where we can look at a sense of depletion, a sense of exhaustion. And it's not that life piled on too much too fast. It was, I've been trying to be the strong one for too long, and I can't do it anymore. And by the time someone is an adult, there are both factors at play.
Yeah.
So I've never seen an adult have a trauma response only because something happened too much too fast. If they are not able to recover from that, experience a full reset back to safety and health, it's because they also have too little for too long in their background. Mm-hmm. That created the foundation. And then we add onto it some new stressor, some new demand, some new change, grief, loss, and it just topples them over because it's the combination of everything now.
It's really reminding me of so I was a structural design engineer before this career, and what we're looking at all the time is stress. We're making sure that the stress that the structure is exposed to does not exceed what its capacity is. And we usually have a factor of safety built in there as well. And the too much could be like, well, all of a sudden, the bridge gets hit by something, it's not meant to be hit by. Or the too little could be it hasn't been maintained well all these years. The difference is that equation that you talked about. We can do the equation when it comes to predictable materials. Harder to do the equation on people. But we are seeing patterns, right? We really are seeing patterns, and there is a lot of science too showing how we can bring those stresses down. So what do you see with that? So we talked about the too much too fast or too little for too long, and how that can we exceed our capacity. We exceed our capacity. So what can people do about it?
There's so much that we can do. And this is where, for me, the message of the biology of trauma is one of hope.
Yeah.
I know that many people will see the word trauma and the last thing that they will think is hope. And yet for me, it's so much of here's what you can do about it. Once we
understand, I love about you.
I am very, very solution focused. And that is also going back to my experience being a foster and adoptive parent. Don't give me the science if there's nothing that I can't do about it. Yeah. I have a kid. He needs help. I need answers, not theory, not ideas, not science.
Yeah.
So for me, this idea of once we understand the science, it gives us leverage points. It shows us, here's what you can do about it. And I get so excited about all the things that a person can do. Now, what I've learned is that it does need to be an integrative approach. Yeah. Meaning you can't just do one thing because it's not just one problem. Mm. The body has innate healing strategies. It is designed to heal itself. This is also what I learned in surgery. When I made an incision into someone's skin, whether I was going all the way into their belly or just removing a superficial lipoma, when I made that incision, I never wondered, how is the body going to heal this skin incision? Well, they need to go to therapy to talk about it. Well, they need, right? No, it's just the body heals itself. We know these principles. You bring the skin together, you tie it up with sutures, and you leave it there for a week, and the skin will heal itself. So the body is designed to heal. Mm-hmm. If it is not, something is blocking that.
Right.
In surgery, it would be, if it's not healing, it's a sign that there's a festering infection underneath. There's something underneath, something buried that I got to go find because it's blocking the skin from healing. It's the same thing with trauma. Right, as long as there's trauma festering and hidden and buried underneath, it's not going to be able to heal. But what happens is that we're blocking so much of that healing process, unintentionally, of course, but we are blocking that. And so being able to see, here are the things that block the healing, and here's what allows the healing. And after trauma, after surviving something that we weren't sure we would survive, we were not sure that we would be okay. It requires repair of the 3 levels that it affected. It affected our mind. And we know that because of the thoughts that we have. We know that because of the beliefs that we formed about ourselves from that experience. We know that because of our self-talk that we tell ourselves as we look at ourselves in the mirror. We can tell that, ooh, this trauma is manifesting in my mind through my thoughts, my behaviors, my actions. But it also is the body level. The body level, even down to the tissues and the movement of our body. So this is where we need to bring in some form of somatic work, where we are working with our sensory system, we're working with our movement, we're working on completing stored muscle memory of times when we could not overcome a problem, times that we could not speak up for ourselves. That gets stored into our body. It's very common for people as they start to talk about their past to get a lump in their throat
Oh, yeah.
and be able to unable to actually express something. That's because it's a muscle memory that I can't speak up for myself. That's what happened before if we experienced a trauma. So it actually forms muscle memory that we need to work with on a body or somatic level. But then the piece that I bring in is the biology piece. Now, we've known that trauma impacts our biology since the first adverse childhood experiences study came out in 1992. But we haven't known what to do about it. And in fact, Jane, there have been so many people who now come into my programs and they think that there's nothing they can do about it. They have resolved to have a bad life and poor health outcomes and die 10 years earlier because that's what the studies show happen to those with high ACE scores. They haven't known that that's actually not a life sentence, but that is the outcome when we don't know what to do. And so for me, this biology of trauma message is a message of hope because it shows us what are those repair tools that we can apply to change the outcome, to change the trajectory. If we want to talk about the body keeping score, to change the score, we can do that with the right repair.
And it's the knowing what to do, but also doing it, right? Taking the action to do it. And I'm sure you've got strategies in your book about that because you do offer solutions. So
I do. And I actually finished my book with a whole section on why some people might not be successful in creating the change that they want with my book. And it all comes down to these trauma patterns, right? Because
it's their patterns.
They're
repeating the patterns.
Yes, the repeating of the patterns, Jane, the repeating of the patterns.
What kind of patterns do you see that people are repeating, Aimie, that's keeping their body, their physical body in a state of trauma as well?
Yeah, so there are the patterns that have created a body trauma loop. And once we're in that loop, that's what makes it hard to get out of the loop. And trauma creates these changes in our biology. But one of the key concepts of the biology of trauma is that that same biology now feeds this loop and it keeps us stuck through the effect on our nervous system.
Yeah.
We talk about nervous system regulation or nervous system dysregulation. The more trauma burden our body has, the more dysregulated our nervous system will be. But the more inflammation we have, the more nutrient deficiencies we have, the more toxins we're holding, the more mitochondrial compromise we have, the more imbalanced our hormones are. These are all things that will actually increase our nervous system dysregulation, which is why it will never be enough to just go to therapy and talk about it when trauma has literally reached the level in our cells and our DNA.
We have to take action then, right? People
have
need
to
to
do
take
that
action.
repair. Exactly. And the repair is possible. And I think of all of the things that I've learned, and really what I did was I took everything that I've learned about the biology of what can hold us back in the healing because of our biology and what to do about it, because that was literally my experience. I looked at my experience and I have had all of those biology factors that I talk about, which made it very hard for me. My healing journey was very hard. And yet, this is also how I learned all the different pieces that I'm not sure I would have learned otherwise.
I see it too. Like, for example, the hypervigilance, which goes with having you're hypervigilant, so and hyper independent. So then you think I can do this myself and I don't need help.
Right.
Or you're a perfectionist. So unless I do this exactly right, it's not going to be good enough. And so those behavior adaptations, as as Gabramate calls them, right? Behavioral adaptations. These behavioral adaptations are the ones that can keep us stuck in the loop. So, how do people get past those things?
This is why it takes an integrative approach,
Yeah.
because you can't just go to your health practitioner and work on your gut dysbiosis that is contributing to your nervous system dysregulation, because
Yeah.
literally your thoughts, your behavior adaptations, the different parts of you that have developed ways to help you cope and survive by trying to be perfect, they will be what keep you stuck, and they will be what keep your nervous system dysregulated and your gut in dysbiosis.
Mm-hmm.
But yet you can't just go and talk about your parts and do somatic work and not address the biology, because the biology will keep your nervous system dysregulated. So this is why, as for all of the years that I've now been working with other people as well, it takes that integration where we have to work at the mind, the body, and the biology level at the same time. And then we can create great change, because we're able to repair all of the contributing factors for that nervous system dysregulation. We're not neglecting a piece. We're not keeping one piece, continuing to give our nervous system danger signals,
Right.
while we've addressed one level, and one level is giving safety signals, but there's still danger signals coming from the other levels.
Mm-hmm.
All the levels have to be shifted to one of safety.
Can you give any examples of what you might do to address the mind and the body and the biology, just as an example?
Absolutely. Let's take chronic pain. Let's take chronic pain
Okay.
as an example. And when I am working with someone with chronic pain, there are predictable thought patterns because it's coming from the nervous system. And some of those thought patterns might be the people pleasing, might be the perfectionism, might be the pushing through. So let's talk about the pushing through.
Yeah.
That idea that I can't let myself feel. I have to push through. I have to do more. This is the only way for me to be okay. And then our body eventually says, no more. You're not going to push me anymore. And I'm going to give you chronic pain so that you can't.
Yeah.
So
I see that a lot.
I'm sure you do. So we have this, if you want to call it a personality trait, I call it a part of us that believes that for me to be okay in the world, I have to push through. It's not okay for me to rest. It's not okay for me to have needs. It's not okay for me to stop to take care of myself, because I might get behind. And if I get behind, well, and then the story spirals from there.
Yeah.
So this would be the work that I'm doing then with that thought of, how can I have a different thought? And what if I just started with, I have the thought that I should push through. And then even just that puts some distance between
Separation.
me and that thought.
Yeah.
And I am not that thought.
Right.
This is not what I believe. It's just a thought that I had. And I can choose what to do with a thought if it's just a thought and not me. So putting some distance has been very helpful for that mind piece, to allow me and those that I help to see it as, it's just a thought. It's just a part of me. It's not all of me. I actually do have a part of me that would love to take care of myself better. It just doesn't get the time of day because this other part is so strong. It's stronger. That drive to push through is stronger because it's coming from a survival place.
Yeah.
So that's an idea of the mind level that we work with. With the somatic level, I'm going to be working with them to create a felt sense of safety, a felt sense, not a talk sense, a felt sense of safety. And then even getting to the place where we can work on stories of the past, stories that were overwhelming at that time, and complete some memories that are stored in the body that didn't get completed at that time. So if I experienced a car accident, for example, but I got hit instead of being able to avoid it, what I will be moving someone through is let's work on that story. When we can feel safe enough, let's pretend we're back in that place. I want you to put your hands on the steering wheel. I want you to look around your car. Do you remember what was here? Do you remember what you were seeing? Do you remember what you were smelling? I often do this as an art narrative process to really build this out so that our brain and our body can be like, yep, this is what it was like. And then this happened. I saw the car coming towards me. But what we can do now is we can pause the story. We couldn't do that when we were in the middle of the accident, but we can
Right.
do that. We can pause that car. Okay, so you noticed the car for the first time. Let's pause that car. It's no longer coming at you. What do you want to do? Do you want to swerve? Do you want to put on the brakes? And we actually do these physical movements that we didn't do at that time because it just happened too fast. It happened so fast. And it actually allows the body to create a new memory of something that it never had resolution for before. And it brings resolution. And it actually allows, sometimes for the first time, for the brain and the body to realize, oh, that's over. I'm not still in my family of origin, exposed to that toxic stress or that shame or that perfectionism, the fighting, the divorce, the pain, whatever it was. Oh, that's in the past. That car accident. Oh, that's actually in the past. Because until our body and brain get the reset, the full reset to safety, it's still in the background. It's still as if it could be happening. We don't know, but it could be happening. And that's what creates a lot of that background anxiety and tension that builds over time, is because we've got all of these experiences. We're just accumulating, but not having been able to resolve.
Right.
The last piece would be the biology piece. So especially
Right.
for chronic pain, I've got to bring energy into the system because the body has run out of energy to be able to do its own innate healing strategies. So oftentimes with chronic pain, as with the other conditions associated with a chronic trauma response or a functional freeze, I'm focusing a lot on mitochondria first. Sometimes there's other priorities to do, like sometimes the brain inflammation is the loudest problem that we have. And so maybe we're going to address that first, or maybe there's some obvious nutrient deficiencies and we can address that first. But at the end of the day, we need to be able to bring in energy to the system. And that's going to be both through bringing in energy, bringing in support for the mitochondria, but also removing those things that drain the energy that we do make. Mm-hmm. And when we do all these things at the same time, then we're able to make greater changes because we're doing all the levels at the same time. They don't need to be big steps, but just small steps at each level. And those small hinges swing big doors because we're working on all three hinges at the same time.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. It's sort of like a synergistic effect then, right?
Very much so.
Yeah. Aimie, this sounds wonderful. And we're gonna where can people find the book? And then also, like, is there any other big message you want to get out that we haven't talked about yet?
Yeah, they can find my book on Amazon.
Okay.
And I am happy to share with you a link where I have some other bonuses that they can get this week if they order the book this week, things that they can get no cost, but just for the price of the book. They will also get some bundle, including my 5-day somatic nervous system reset, which would be a great place for people to be able to start with this somatic exploration and bringing that piece in.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. So we will share the link as well so that you can just go find down below here, just click on the link to go get the book and get those great bonuses that Aimie is sharing as well for this week. Okay. Anything else, a big message that you want to share from the book?
My big message is, again, coming back to this idea, Jane, that there is so much that we can do. There is so much that our body has hidden, and there is so much that we can do.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And I always like to have this one last question. What's a baby step someone could take today that's going to begin to shift the body into that healing state or shift the body to the state where it can do its healing work naturally. What would you say?
This may surprise people, but what I say in my book is that after all of my work and all of my research, even when we're working with health, physical symptoms, the fastest way to shift is somatic work. So that is one of the reasons why I'm sharing my 5-day nervous system somatic reset with all those who are purchasing the book this week, so that they can get started and even know what exactly is that? What do I do? I've got 5 of my top guided exercises in that somatic reset.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you for that. And thank you so much for, well, this book that you put out. And also, I mean, this book is sort of after a long path of really focusing on the biology of trauma. You've held summits before, and you've really spent a lot of time, dedicated a lot of your life to this, Dr. Aimie. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing. You've inspired me as well, so many other people. So thanks so much for that, for your book, for your gift to the world and everything that you've been doing.
Well, right back at you, Jane. Thank you for how you show up in the world to help other people through your experience.
Oh, and thank you everyone for watching and listening, and check out Dr. Aimie's book and make sure you get it this week so you can get those great bonuses. And really, you can shift, you can change things. You do not have to be a victim of your ACEs score if that's something you're thinking about. You do not have to stay in pain or with the health condition that you have. You can change. You can do this. I'm evidence of it, and so many other people as well. So I hope you've gotten inspiration from today. So thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you again on Wellness by Design soon.